right here.
I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you. I am a registered nurse, and I work predominantly with the elderly population. I feel confused by my role as a nurse in regards to two issues. One being quality of life versus quantity of life, and the other being survival of the fittest. Modern medicine can now sustain life without quality, regardless of the age of a person. If we were a more enlightened society right now, how would survival of the fittest be playing out? How would we as a society deal with or not deal with birth defects, handicaps, brain damage, and anyone who could no longer care for themselves?
When you talk about being a more enlightened society, we assume that what you mean is a society that is more connected to source and making more of their decisions from that broader vantage point. And so this is a very easy question to answer with all of that being understood. From your broader non-physical perspective, the quality of life is higher priority, and in fact only priority. Quantity of life becomes unimportant. Quantity in terms of being in a physical body, because you understand that there is no shortage about that. And so, in the same way that you would not walk into a movie that seemed like it was going to be good and then turned out to not be, and feel like you had to stay there and endure it to the very end. Instead, you would feel free to get up and walk out. That is the way, from your broader vantage point, you view this physical experience. So from that broader, enlightened, non-physical point of view, you would not endure discomfort. The thing that makes this question a little bit hard to understand is that very often someone looking at a situation from the outside is superimposing how they would feel. And so very often in situations that you would call not good quality of life situations, and therefore something that you would not choose, the other is having a fine experience within it. And so it gets a little tricky. Unfortunately, it is not something that you can define for another. It is troubling. We can feel your concern about sustaining people in their physical body, even though the quality of life is no longer there. And we would like to ease your mind a little bit by saying to you, in many cases, in fact, in the majority of those cases, they make their withdrawal, even though you keep their body happily pumping along. There are many situations where that consciousness has absolutely reemerged back into non-physical. And so the quality of life has not been put at risk because they are focused from their broader non-physical perspective, no longer in their physical body. But we can feel what you are getting at in the dilemma that you are facing. And we would say to you that your concern and your determination to preserve life in the physical body at all costs is not in vibrational harmony with what you would do from your broader non-physical perspective. From your broader non-physical perspective, your dominant intention is that of joy, where from your physical perspective, often you are trying to prove worthiness. You believe that struggle is necessary. Would we put someone on life support? Never.
Okay.
Would we sustain them beyond their ability to sustain themselves? Not for very long. We do understand that there is a time of realignment, and sometimes someone needs a coma, so to speak, to reclaim their balance. But your medical science has taken this far beyond that, which we would encourage. We don't even encourage you enduring a negative moment.
Okay.
We would say, reach for a thought that feels better, and if you can't find it there, find it there, and if you can't find it there, find it there. And in the same way we said to you, get in, find a good feeling, and get out, we would speak that about your life experience as well. Get in, get happy, or get out.
Okay. The dilemma is like in the healthcare centers for elderly people. I have often commented to other nurses that these people couldn't die if they wanted to, because they are sustained endlessly, long past any quality of life, just sitting there in massive depressions and loneliness, as well as not having vision or hearing, all sorts of different handicaps. So I just wonder if I'm perpetuating this by by participating in it?
Well, we would say to you, don't worry about that. We do not think that that statement is absolutely accurate, that they could not die if they wanted to, because if there were not something that was calling them forth, they would not be remaining. When someone gets ready to make their transition, they make their transition. What you are seeing, more than anything else, is not a system that is holding people where they don't want to be, but instead a system that has risen out of people's confusion about death. It's not that this malicious system or this fearful of death system is putting people in a place where they just won't let you die even if you want to. It's that people's contradiction within their own vibration about their desire to reemerge or their readiness to reemerge or their desire to stay. Their vibrations are very confused about that. The best reason to make your transition into non-physical is not because physical is miserable. The best reason to make your transition to non-physical is that you have a sense of completion and you are looking for another vantage point, you see. But most people are very far from understanding that. So as people fear death, but they're also not enjoying life, they have a sort of contradiction going on that holds them in that place. And the system has grown in response to that more than that is happening because of the system that exists.
Okay. So is quality of life, is it as unrealistic a goal as saying there should be peace on earth?
Well, it is absolutely possible for you to come into a physical body and achieve quality of life and maintain it, because you are an individual who has the ability to line up your intentions about you. The reason that it is not practical to intend peace on earth is because you can't intend for all of those others. It's a very good question, though. Can I find peace or satisfaction within my own body any more than a larger number of bodies can find peace and satisfaction on earth? And we say, if you could understand that contrast is always going to give you a new desire, and as you are continually looking for vibrational harmony with the new desire, we say it is absolutely plausible and happening often that you can come into your physical body and live happily ever after. That is absolutely doable. And if you didn't believe that it was, we do not think you would come forth into this physical experience. You expect this to be a joyful growth experience. And it always is joyful from your non-physical vantage point. And it is only ever not joyful from your physical vantage point when you choose a thought that doesn't let it flow.
Okay. For any of our current population who I am viewing as trapped in a lack of quality of life, how could they be aided to let go? Or is this not my work? Or is it truly none of my business?
As you worry about their quality of life, your quality of life is in jeopardy. And that's sort of how they got there too. They weren't worried about the same things that you're worried about, but they were worrying about something. That's how they little by little pinched off their well-being, you see. It isn't that you can't make a difference. You can. But you have to find something else in your vibration and make it dominant before you can be of any value. In other words, when you feel like you feel, and you didn't feel that way from the beginning, and you don't always only feel that way, but you do feel that way a lot. It is becoming your dominant vibration. And so, from that place of concern, you cannot be in a place of helping someone find relief from that. We would begin by softening our angst about it, by saying things such as, the system is a byproduct of people's confusion, and everybody doesn't feel exactly the same way. And some of them are being benefited by where they are within this. Mm-hmm. And everything is really on schedule for all of them. We were visiting with a woman one day who was concerned about her father, who was in a situation like this and obviously not happy and lingering and not making his transition. And her question to us was, what are we doing wrong? And she meant, what am I doing wrong? And what is my father doing wrong? What are we doing wrong? What have we done that's holding him here in this uncomfortable predicament? And we said to her, nothing wrong is happening. Everything is right on schedule. Everything is just the way it should be. And the relief that she felt was palpable. The entire universe felt it a little bit. And in that very moment, her father made his transition. Now, We were not saying to her or to you now that she was holding him and keeping him from making it. But very often these people are in this place where it could go either way. They've practiced all kinds of vibrations, you see. But people just flat out feel uncomfortable about even encouraging someone to make their transition. You all are really confused about the subject of death. Death is something that you do to people you don't like. You kill them if they're bad. You obliterate them if they're inappropriate. For heaven's sakes, you give them the death penalty. And so you have a hard time finding anything happy or eternal about this subject of death. You misunderstand it. And so your society is experiencing this phenomenon that you are talking about because of your conflict about the subject of death. And we would say, when you are at ease with the idea of death, and that is what is dominant within your vibration, then you will be the life-giving angel of death. In other words, you're just fresh and free. You don't worry whether they stay or go. You know that they are eternal. You adore them either way. You don't worry about the fact that they're lingering. You're happy that they're there. Maybe there can be something that can be mined from this moment that is of value. In other words, this is the leading edge of thought. This is where the most focused thought happens. Maybe even on the subject of death, powerful thoughts can come forth. There's no right or wrong in this. They're not inappropriate if they die, and they're not inappropriate if they don't die. Let's make death a non-issue. Let's focus upon life, and let's not nitpick about whether their life is focused through this physical body or through their inner being, whether they are predominantly non-physical, which all of you are, or whether they appear to be predominantly physical, which it never is predominant, but it feels that way to you all, you see. Just begin making the life-death issue a non-issue, because it is all a life issue. And then begin thinking about the quality of life, you see. Pushing against death is not a quality of life for you or for those that you do it on their behalf. So as you say, the fact that you're still focused here must be a good thing. Otherwise, you wouldn't still be focused here, because these are big issues. In other words, this is something that certainly your inner being is in on. If there was ever anything that I don't need on my to-do today list, you say, it is whether you live or die. In other words, these are not things for me to worry about or to conclude. I'm joyful that you're here to interact with me. I'm joyful when you make your transition. I'm joyful either way. All is very well about this subject. And meanwhile, isn't it nice that this facility exists that helps you while you're making your mind up?
Oh.
Really good.
Beyond.